a support is an emotional job, and it's not for the faint of heart. Like I said, you have to love helping people to do this work consistently and long term.
You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. CX Passport listeners, wow. Just wow. Y'all have been so kind to the guests appearing on the monthly CX Open to Work episode series. Thank you for watching, listening, and sharing these episodes to help job seekers find their next great role. In fact, I want to share a victory story with you. Our last CX Open to Work guest, Emily Stubbs, has already landed. So let's celebrate a great CX search victory. With that whetting the appetite, it's time for more. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by Ashley Hayslett. I reached out to Mercer Smith, a former CX Passport guest way back in episode 116, and asked her for a recommendation for a CX Open to Work guest. There was no hesitation when she recommended Ashley. And trust me, a Mercer recommendation is gold. Ashley most recently was the head of community support for Clubhouse, where she brought tangible business results through improved customer experience. Think increased revenue, reduced costs. Prior to Clubhouse, you would have found Ashley in community and customer experience roles and leadership roles at Gregarious, Helix Sleep, Hungry Root, and others. Folks, Ashley isn't just your next best CX role candidate. She's a great follow on LinkedIn, sharing insight and treating this job search with humanity and humor. I am learning so much from what she has to say. I've been so encouraged by the CX Open to Work series and your engagement with it. Thank you, viewers and listeners. Now, buckle up. Let's get ready for another trip. Ashley, welcome to CX Passport.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's. You and I have been talking now for about 10 minutes before we even got started, and I've got this adrenaline, this excitement, this kind of buzz, and I'm truly excited about this. Let's just start off with something kind of simple. What is it that draws you to customer experience? Why is this as a discipline important to you as compared to any of the other number of disciplines you could do?
Yeah, I think the people who are best at this are people who like genuinely like helping people. And I really love to help people. And for me, that the help thing for me is getting people to the aha moment, like that light bulb moment when you like hear or see them get something. I started doing this in college. We had a university information technology services is run by students. We ran the help desk. We ran the tech labs. We did desktop support, network operations, all of that stuff. So we got like all this really spectacular like tech experience in school when like I was a classics major. I didn't know how to like what.
We could do an entire show about wait. The classics major is doing tech support. Hang on now. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I remember I was on the phone with a student one night who just needed help signing up for classes. Like I was in college more than 10 years ago. I don't want to do that math. But we were using like brand new technology for digital class selection.
Okay.
And it was terrible. And people's at-home internet was really bad back then. Like we were still between dial-up and DSL. And he was in a wheelchair and he couldn't come in to pick his classes, and he was just having a really hard time. And I spent maybe 2 hours on the phone with him picking his classes for him because like the deadline was in 2 days. And he was just so happy, and that felt so good to like change someone's day like that. He was so frustrated when he got on the phone, and I had so many experiences like that while I was a student. Even when I wasn't working, like I remember I was a classics major, so my professors were not particularly tech savvy. And I spent a lot of time in their offices just like setting up their desktops and just like making sure they had access to JSTOR the way that they should and stuff like that. And they would just be so happy. I'm like, maybe I'll get extra credit for this.
So you tell me you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart because you want to delight
but
people.
I helped them. I helped them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started in college and then I moved to New York, and that was at the time when startups were brand new in New York City. Like, I mean, not brand new, but like when New York was like, we're going to be a tech startup place. What's Silicon Valley?
Yeah, right.
And it was really easy to get support jobs at places like that. And that's where I started. And they were all very early, high growth tech startups, completely different audiences every single time, but still in a situation where I was either getting people to that aha moment or just like turning a day around. Like Paperless Post was great, like helping people with their wedding invitations or bar mitzvah invitations, or completely reprinting things when we did have paper then. And yeah, so it's like this adrenaline rush of like, oh my God, I turned this person's day around.
I think like we need to cut that segment out right there and just have not edit it out, but actually amplify it in the sense of, a lot of times we hear that customer support roles are and they are difficult. I'm not diminishing that at all. They are difficult. They are challenging. This self-reward though that you're getting out of that, of the opportunity to have somebody be able to turn it around.
Oh, 100%.
And that has carried, what I'm hearing you say is that was sort of the beginning of it. Walk me kind of from there to the most recent role. How did that initial sort of spirit of, I want to make somebody's day.
Yeah.
How did that carry forward as you advance through customer experience, customer success, customer label, XYZ roles?
Yeah. It's the extension of me, like having that really good moment to everyone else, right? So like my first advancement in leadership was training. And I started training new team members and sometimes people who were just new to the company to help them understand, like, here's what we do, here's what you do, here's how it's related to what users do. Here's how to make sure what you're doing makes sense to our users so they continue to have a good time on our platform.
Right.
And like from there, it was starting to own the team and build the team and making sure I was building the team with people who did like helping people and kind of had that spark and were filling gaps on the team. Like if I'm not great at this, who's going to be great at that, and complete that experience. And from there, helping the leadership team, like CEO, VP, whoever, understand like we should make these decisions so our users are happy, because then we're happy because we're getting more users and making more money, and just making them understand that it's not just like, we're not building features just for the revenue. That is what a business does, whatever.
Sure.
But understanding and making sure that your users are happy and understand how to use your platform and want to tell their friends, like almost a silent NPS survey, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think real NPS surveys are great. They're like not my favorite thing. But when you see referrals come in from your current users over and over again, that is a great litmus for how your NPS is going.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
I want to come back to that, but you said something that I don't want to lose. And you talked about, hey, when we're talking to the VPs or the C levels or that sort of stuff about, hey, here's what's going on. In some companies, it's small enough that everybody's just aware of it all the time. But as companies grow, there's a disconnect between what is actually happening with the customer and leadership decisions, or forget the word leadership, just business decisions are being made. How did you help bridge that gap? How did you elevate the customer in the eyes of those making the business decisions?
Metrics, like learning how to like find the right metrics, learning which metrics were important for whatever goals we had at that moment. And then explaining like other kind of CS metrics that leadership or whoever else don't usually see or understand, and like explain, especially like CSAT. I think CSAT is a funny metric to measure sometimes because it just to a CEO, it might just sound like, well, that person's just complaining. Just answer them better. But explaining to them, like, actually, what's happening here is this person's giving us feedback about the product, like this, or about the policy. Like, they reacted this way because they didn't like that we had to enforce this policy. So learning how to not just analyze and collect the metrics, but how to really show them to the people who are making the business decisions to understand, like, here's what this means. And if we did these things, they would go up or down, whichever way we want them to go. And then we get more users, or we get more retention, etc. So just it was a lot of understanding how to show them and talk through the metrics with them.
I hear a very mature approach to customer experience in what you're describing there, because and I'm the first in line in this, where I say, hey, customer story. I like the emotion part of it. How do I elevate the customer? I get the customer story there. And I think that can start to, it motivates the buy-in, but the logic never goes away. And I love that you started with the metrics there, and you started to mention this. And I'd like to know a little bit more about how you went from some of the metrics that are direct customer metrics, CSAT, right? That is, customer says X, Y, and Z on a survey, and we know that number, that's not the same as dollars in or out of the company. How do you go from that to what you were starting to talk about, of that, how do the revenue, the retention, how do you bridge that gap in a business decision mind from customer to business results?
Yeah, it depends on all of this stuff is relative to, like, what your business is and what your goals are for the quarter or for the year. But when I started doing this, I of course started with the emotional story. Like, users are really upset about this. Like, we have to change this. And when I realized that they weren't reacting to that, I was like, how do I prove this? How do I do this?
Okay.
And it was just numbers. And at the time, we were really trying to understand how to scale the support without spending more, like, in a smart way. And I started tracking cost per ticket.
Okay.
And when I started doing that, I started finding patterns in where we were sinking a lot of our time in the inbound, right? And a lot of it was stuff that was fixable but kept getting band-aided or pushed aside or iceboxed. And once I let that float to the top and showed them, like, hey, we're sinking thousands of dollars a month, more than that, in helping people work around these bugs that we're not fixing, but we're also not releasing new features. So why is that happening? And when that happened, we built a completely new process on bug reporting and triaging and stuff like that. And that reduced our inbound because the bugs were gone, right?
Yeah.
And it reduced how long it took us to handle things, because we weren't, like, hand-holding users through workarounds that were not intuitive. So just, like, thinking about things like that. It's not even just the revenue. Sometimes that is a really good trigger, but sometimes it's, how do we convert people better? Well, what's keeping people from converting when they talk to support, or anything like that? Like, what is the big thing we're trying to do, and how does support push the business forward that way?
What you've deftly kind of brought to the top here is something that I've talked about a lot, and that is oftentimes the contact center is viewed as this cost center.
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh, we got to spend a lot of money, whatever. Whereas I've tried to help clients understand this, and clients that are successful do understand this, that no, it can be a customer insights center. And in what you just described there, and what you just described there was, hey, look, do you want to know which bugs to fix? Do you want to know which products to add? Sometimes it'd be hard to prioritize. Why don't you just let the customers who are already contacting us use that information to be the insights, so that it elevate that into that, converted into, like you said, either reduced costs or these new products increase conversion and move things forward in a profitable way. It's so the contact center is just such gold. It is a gold mine that is so often overlooked.
Yeah. And I've had product teams say, like, oh, but this feedback is so ambiguous. And I'm like, but it's not. And, like, there's literally, like, verbatim, like, feedback from what users are saying. This is not ambiguity. I can give you literally 200 tickets about what users are complaining about. And maybe something about that is ambiguous to you, but if you want me to boil it down to like the actual thing we need to fix, I can absolutely do that. Like that's a conversation that I've had so many times, and it is so baffling to me.
You actually made me snort laugh there, and I hit the mute button in time, so there was not a snort laugh on the recording. But my gosh, you did that, Ashley. I want to go back to something that you'd said, because you and I definitely, we could talk about the business results, and I think you and I could get each other wound up a bit on why are folks not listening to this, because there's so much insight there. Let's go back to something that you said. I do want to. So that was the logic. I want to talk a little bit about the heart side of this too. The thing that initially motivated you in that. What are some particular either heartwarming or just special stories where you really did turn it around for someone? I love that story of how you helped that person register for classes. What about in the post-college life?
That's a good question. Oh, I remember when I worked at Aereo, which was, y'all can Google this. It doesn't exist anymore, and that's because Congress said, "What are you doing?"
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. Whatever. But it was basically a technology that allowed you to watch broadcast television on a mobile device.
I think I remember this. Was this like a lot of antennas?
Like 10 years ago. Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. Yeah. So I worked there. I was like one of the first support people there.
Okay.
And I spent a long time on the phone with someone who just really wanted to record their show. and you know, this was broadcast TV, so it was like, I'm almost certain it was like Price is Right or something. This was over 10 years ago.
Don't mess with my Price is Right.
Yeah. So this was an older person, and they were really the target audience for this because they were doing this on an iPad. We really wanted people to be able to do this on mobile devices versus desktop, where it actually worked better. But, you know, I was talking this like older person through like, here's how you clear your cache on a mobile browser on your iPad, and here's how we're gonna sign you up for this app and make sure your antenna is working, and here's how you get through your there's no remote, I'm so sorry, there's like just like all of those steps, just getting this person through it to be able to record their show. And that's the one that I remember. And then when I worked at Unpacked, which they brand themselves as the kayak of moving companies, which means that you find a moving company that fits your moving need. So you just say like, this is where I'm moving to from. And you get a list of movers and their prices and discounts or whatever, and what they can and can't do, what insurance they do or don't need to move you. And I remember moving is terrible. So I remember I was helping. Our job was to help the movers and the people who were moving. We didn't have two separate teams for this. So I was getting this woman through a long haul move. Like, their stuff was where it was supposed to be, but the movers had broken a crystal chandelier, which sucks.
Yeah.
But because this happened and she signed the papers that waived their liability if anything got broken and didn't have extra insurance on it, she was holding somebody else's stuff hostage.
Oh my gosh.
So that happened a lot. It is a thing that happens a lot in like big moves like that. But having to communicate between her just back and forth and like talk her down and help her understand, like, here's what you can do. I'm so sorry this happened. We do have to get that stuff to the person it belongs to, and talking through like best practices with the movers. They really should. This was like a priceless thing and was packed really well, but they stacked it really poorly. Like they always had to take pictures of everything that they moved. So we always had evidence. Just like getting them to a compromise was one of like the best de-escalations I think I've ever done. But there's just like hills and valleys and peaks of the kinds of stuff that we deal with that can be frustrating and exciting. The things that make you get off the phone and say, oh my God, that was so good. This woman's day was just like completely made, or like that person was awful, but I helped them. They got what they wanted. and, you know, we still have a customer. I'm going to lay on the floor for a second. Those things happen. But like, yeah, support is an emotional job. And it's not for the faint of heart. Like I said, you have to love helping people to do this work consistently and long term. But in the end, like, even when you don't particularly personally have a great interaction, you know that you move someone forward. And like, that's still a plus to me.
Ashley, you are correct. Moving sucks. Moving
is
involves
terrible.
A lot of awful things and moves a lot of travel. And sometimes travel, even if you're not moving, can be exhausting. And that's where the lounge can be kind of nice. So I'd like to invite you to stop down. Let's have a little break here in the lounge. Cool. Join me here in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly and have a little bit of fun here. Okay. What is a dream travel location from your past?
From my past, when I was little, I barely remember this trip. I went on a trip to Germany with my nanny, who's from Germany. She took me with her to visit her mother. I couldn't have been more than 2 or 3, so I don't remember anything other than like eating a lot of chocolate and sausage. I don't remember what anything
sounds like
looks
Nirvana.
like.
Wait, hang on.
Oh yeah, sure? I had a great time.
Were you in heaven or Germany? I'm confused.
That's all I remember, and I don't even remember where, because I haven't talked to her about this in a really long time. But man, I haven't been out of the country in a really long time. And I've been thinking about like getting back to Germany, like as an adult for a really long time. I'd love to do that.
Well, definitely for chocolate and sausage, I would be there.
Yeah.
It's part of the Denton family plan, actually. So we got my wife's brother is living there, and his wife, they're in Germany right now. And so we want to go visit them while they're there. Yeah. And now I know I'm going to focus on sausage and chocolate.
Sausage. I'm from Wisconsin. Like, I am always happy to like a platter of sausage.
Sign it up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about going forward? What's a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
I've not been to. I think right now the thing that's been on my mind a lot is South Korea. I have a lot of friends who have been going in the last like year and a half. And I don't know, like the way the Instagram algorithm works is that it's really influenced by your friends, like likes and things. And my Instagram feed is maybe 3/4 K-pop. They're not even things that I really care about, but I'm just like, when am I going to go? So I've been thinking about that a lot, but I'm also, I'm the kind of traveler that has to have like some handle on the language before I go somewhere. So I need to work. I really need to work on my Korean because I haven't even started. So
that one certainly, that's a little more challenging than just popping off a little bit of Spanish in the weekend to get that one down.
For sure.
One thing, my son was studying abroad in Japan, and he did a weekend trip over to South Korea. And one thing that he talked about was the food. We've already talked about chocolate and sausage, and absolutely. Yeah. What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Ooh. I won't say sausage again. Because I think that's actually the
next
answer.
Question.
I always like to shock people and tell people that my favorite vegetable has been, since I was a little kid, broccoli.
Oh, okay. All right.
Broccoli is the vegetable that I eat the most. It is actually probably one of my favorite foods. I eat it by itself. Yeah. I don't know why it's good. It smells so bad sometimes. But like I love broccoli. Like I eat it like I should drink water, I think. There's always broccoli in my fridge.
Boy, that's not a sentence I expected to hear. I'm one of those that likes broccoli, though. I've never thought about it.
I love broccoli.
Drinking water. So, well, broccoli usually comes up as the answer, or often comes up as the answer to this question. But what is something you hated as a kid while you were growing up, but you were forced to eat?
Mushrooms.
Okay. That was quick.
Yeah. I like, even now I can barely eat them. I'm really sensitive to texture. My mom loved mushrooms. She put mushrooms in as many things as she possibly could. And like anything else, if mushrooms didn't exist, this question would be hard to answer because my mom didn't really force me to eat things that I didn't like. But when it like came to mushrooms, it was just because she put it in everything. And she would get frustrated when I pick things out. Yeah. She would just like, just eat it. You're wasting food. I'm like, but it's just fungus. Like, why are you making me eat this? She liked it on pizza and spaghetti and salad, raw and cooked. on steak. I mean, I'll eat it cooked on a steak or like raw in a salad now. But when I was a kid, I was like, what are you doing to me?
There's progress. You can have a little
Yeah.
bit. It is fun to see the evolution that we've had. Closing out the lounge, back to travel. What is one thing when you are traveling, not including your phone, not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
I don't like flying, and I have to, while I'm flying, just like be chill. And I'm not counting my laptop as the thing. It's Jurassic Park.
Okay.
So every time I fly, I watch Jurassic Park, and that might sound crazy. But it's so distracting. It's my favorite movie. But like, it's because it's predictable and I know what's happening, it keeps me distracted. And there's something about the action in the movie, just like the rumble of the dinosaurs running and things like that, that works with flying, where I'm less bothered by flying and being in the cabin because I'm watching my favorite movie that is about the absurdity of humanity testing science to its limits, and shaking dinosaurs and chasing people. I don't know, like I haven't watched anything else on a plane in the last like 5 years.
Ashley, I love that because there have been some unique answers to that question. Is when you're talking to 150 people, you get a unique answers. I don't know that I've ever had the movie as being the answer. I like that. That's something different.
I watch it every time.
That's the fun of having these conversations. I want to get back to the world of customer experience here in the back half of the episode, especially when we're talking about the CX open to work conversations. I really like to know what your perspective is on, what is it that companies are missing in customer experience, in whatever definition you want to use for customer experience today, and how can they improve on what's missing?
I feel like this is not how you're asking the question, but it's how I'm going to answer it. I feel like they're missing the point of how to use AI in support right now,
okay,
or
I like
CX
that.
or
Keep
anything.
going. Yeah.
Every conversation that I've had with anyone in leadership who wants to bring it up to me has been, cool, so we don't want to hire people, or we want to reduce costs here. So we want to put in some AI, and how do we do that, and where do we do it? And I have to make them slow down and ask them, like, do you know what AI means for CX goes? Like, do you know what tools are available, or are you just saying words? And then explaining to them.
You're right, though, having to take the very, very beginning. Do
Yeah.
you know what this is?
Do you know what it is and what's actually available?
Yeah.
Like, we're not just slapping ChatGPT on something. Like, ChatGPT is not going to answer things about your product, especially if you don't have like some kind of robust thing for it to train on about your product. And so explaining that and taking them through that and helping them understand where AI can really help and why they need to move out of the we're doing this to save money mindset to we're doing this to improve the actual customer and agent experience.
Amen.
Is they never think about the agent experience, and helping them understand that like the more you improve that experience, the more we're going to improve the user experience. So using AI there first is often like the better place to start. And it helps you understand like how does AI work for CX. So training something on like and getting the right macros to someone or suggesting that, and then training it externally for like, I've gotten to this place where I don't want to call it ticket deflection anymore. I don't know what I want to call it because ticket deflection sounds too negative, but it's just like fast help or whatever. To the point of like not blocking users contacting you, but helping people get answers they need, whichever way they need to do it. Yeah.
Oh man, I almost want to stop right there, but no, there's more that I want to ask you about. But you saw my neck getting sore from nodding too heavily there. In that is one of the things that frustrates me, that I hear that, oh great, we can put this in and we can cut 75% of our staff. And that may be a business outcome that does occur.
Yeah.
However, that shouldn't be the goal.
The
The
goal,
goal should
yeah.
be improved customer experience, which then in turn creates better business results, improved
Exactly,
agent
yeah.
experience. And I love your approach to agent experience, which oddly enough, for those of us that are kind of at least semi-aware of this, and I'm not calling myself an expert, I'm semi-aware. I've been to conferences and that sort of thing, right? That's one of the easier, I almost want to say that, places to start, because Agent Assist
I agree.
has so many just simple applications that it amazes me that there are so many folks outside of this circle that don't know. That's a great and reasonable place to start.
But I also I think it's because all the tools that were built first were for the external experience. Like we've had automation internally for a really long time, which people who are outside of CX don't really realize either. But the tools for the AI tools for improving agent experience are kind of new. And we're still just like trying to figure out what's the best way to do this. And people are still building newer tools for it. And it's only just starting to be built into the support platforms to help people internally instead of just externally. So yeah, I think we're just figuring this out still. But I do think in general, like improving agent experience is usually one of the first and easiest and best ways to improve the customer experience, no matter what tool you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love starting there, especially because you're talking about a community that can feel a little bit anxious when there are conversations in a company around this adoption of this technology, because they hear AI job loss when there is and I don't want to diminish it. Yes, that is a likely outcome in many cases, but the idea of assisting agents, do you no longer want to have to take notes after a call? Boom, it does it for you. Those sorts of things. Wait, I don't have to take notes. All right, I'm on board with that. Yeah, Ashley, I peeked. I looked at the clock. I cannot believe we are already out of time here. I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
And it's probably a combination of what we just talked about, what's broken in customer experience. I want to know kind of how can you help companies unbreak, sorry about that words, customer experience, and then really what's next for you with customer experience?
Yeah, I have really been diving into the deep end with the AI stuff. Like I love figuring out how to set up a chatbot or any kind of external AI programs for businesses, because it's not one size fits all. It's it requires customization. And the thing that I love about changing jobs is that I get a new audience, and there's a new piece of that now with this new technology coming in, is that I get a new audience and I get a new challenge to figure out with this tool. Understanding like, how does this audience want to be helped, but how can I also help them help themselves better and faster? So coming into places and having conversations with leadership about like, here's how I know you want to use this tool, but here's maybe the best way to start with it and how it can scale with you. So I think that's like where I'm really focused right now, and kind of want to make myself like an expert there and just really dive in, even if it's just like consulting or coaching other people who are kind of doing the same thing. I'm unfortunately obsessed with like better as an older millennial who doesn't like talking to support. I really love making self-service as accessible and useful and successful as possible, because I know there's just like a huge group of people who prefer that as far as help goes, and I think that we end up losing a lot of users and customers because that resource doesn't exist or it's not good. So helping companies understand that and then make that platform better is where I've kind of been focused the last even 5-6 years. But as the tools become more robust and better, it's like my focus can only get better from there.
We're going to end right there. That is, I love that approach of how it can be accessible, how it can be better, how it can be desired. It's not about deflection. It's about providing the optimal customer choice and what you're doing, and how you can then help that next company do that in a way that works for them, for the customer, for the final business results as well. Ashley, if folks wanted to get to know you, to learn a little bit more about you, your approach to customer experience, or, talk to you about, hey, I heard this, I want you in my place working for me, helping me make customer experience better, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can either find me on LinkedIn,
Okay.
where I'm usually being a little feral about support, or they can find me on my website, which is prohelpcx.com. They can contact me through there and just see all the kind of stuff that I'm
Awesome.
working on and can help them with. Yeah.
I will get all that in the show notes. As listeners and viewers, scroll down, click that link, and find out about Ashley's feral approach to customer support. I think in the last minutes of this show, you just gave me the title of the episode. I think it's going to be brilliant.
That's fine.
Oh my gosh. Ashley, I've really enjoyed. Thank you for being willing to be a part of the CX Open to Work series. I look forward to hearing and telling your story of being the next great success in this series. Not only did I just enjoy the conversation, I learned from you today, which is always a delight for me. And I know the listeners and viewers did as well. Ashley, thank you for being on CX Passport.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.